so he goes on stage before that and he says, quantum's 30 years away. It doesn't work. It's not interesting.
Right.
And the quantum stocks, fall. I made like $2 million that day. And I am sitting there watching this like, oh, this is great, and he shits on them over and over again. And the problem becomes these quantum companies call him and say, hey man, you really did a number on us. And, this is, what the hell, and I think Jensen just in that moment had this flashback to like when he was, making GPUs and everyone was laughing at him saying, GPUs don't matter. GPUs will never make a difference.
Today, one of my favorite YouTubers, Amit, was doing his morning live stream. I like to tune in most mornings. And Martin Shkreli came into the chat and Amit invited him onto the live stream to talk to about 6,000 to 7,000 of Amit's live stream followers. And Martin is one of potentially the most outspoken shorts on quantum, meaning actively betting against quantum stocks. And people have asked on my channel before, hey, what do you think of Martin? What do you think of Martin? And I usually just don't say anything or kind of just give a nothing burger answer. And I know Martin as a sharp guy, and he's building a competitor software to Bloomberg, which is super impressive. And so what I wanted to do is I kind of went back and digested everything he said, and I want to give my thoughts on what he said. I want to just kind of take what he said to that audience of 6,000, 7,000 people, just point by point, and provide a different perspective on this conversation. And of course, no disrespect to Martin or Amit. In fact, I've gathered from Amit that from what he said about quantum is he definitely has a big problem with the valuations of the company, which I will concede at the start of the video. Many of these quantum stocks have extremely high valuations. And we do see that some stocks like Tesla and Palantir also have, while those companies make way more money than quantum stocks at this current point in time, the valuations have detached a little bit from reality. So if I was to guess, and I would ask Amit directly, but I would guess that his stance on quantum is bearish to neutral, bearish based on valuation. And of course, Martin is very bearish on quantum. And so what I wanted to do was kind of just run through what Martin said, provide some counterpoints in case there's some articles. I mean, I've been covering quantum pretty in depth in 2025, so I might throw some articles up on the screen as Martin is kind of, going through his conversation with Amit. I thought some of the things he said were potentially misleading or just one thing that is often used by those that are skeptical or short a stock who financially benefit from a stock. And we actually heard in this video, in this interview with Amit, that when Jensen made the comments about the quantum companies that crashed the quantum sector, Martin made $2 million. So a lot of retail investors, institutional investors across the board, anyone who was invested in quantum took a 50 to 60% haircut. But Martin made a lot of money because he had a short on the trade. So I just want to go into it. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to not entertain the conversation and to try to provide points and counterpoints. So I hope to do this as respectfully as possible. And let's jump into that. And one other thing, I did notice that Martin, it looks like, if this is his real account, subscribes to the channel. I saw that. I never addressed it. Maybe he had heard of the channel or something. I don't know if that's even his real account, but the last thing I'm going to do on here is get on here and be mean to someone or a subscriber. Let's just keep it to the talking points and go from there. So this is about a 30-minute kind of quantum tirade. Just there's a lot to unpack. I've bookmarked the spots that I think are the most important. And again, this was on Amit's YouTube channel and in his live stream. So I gathered this footage from the recording of the live stream this morning. Let's jump in.
Quantum is sort of like that. There's just no possible way that these companies could be successful.
There's no way they could be successful.
No way. Yeah. So my girlfriend's where a lot of people are experts, and we talk to all the same experts everyone else does, all the big names in the field. But the big names in the field are telling you that it's not possible. Scott Aronson, again, my girlfriend worked with him at MIT and at OpenAI. And in essence, Scott just doesn't believe that quantum's coming anytime soon. But worse than that, there's 4 quantum stocks: Rigetti, D-Wave, IONQ, and Quantum Computing Inc.
Correct.
2 of those are frauds. So IONQ and Rigetti are actually trying to build a quantum computer. Now, I think that's 30 years away. Even if you do build it, there's nothing there. But D-Wave and Quantum Computing Inc., in my opinion, and I know other people disagree, they are complete scams. So
one of the things he says is there's no way these companies could be successful. So the specific companies that he's talking about are the 4 that he mentioned: IONQ, Rigetti, D-Wave, and Quantum Computing Inc. And I will concede we don't hear enough from Quantum Computing Inc. to know what the hell is going on there. So I will concede that point. They are working on photonics, light-based quantum computing. It is interesting. The other piece that he's saying is there's no way these companies could be successful. Well, the thing is we're on the precipice of technological change and a technological revolution. So we have the exponential increase in artificial intelligence with Nvidia chips, with ChatGPT, with DeepSeek, with large language models proliferating around the world. The statement that there's no way that these companies could be successful, the first thing I think about is that 4 of the 7 Magnificent 7 tech stocks in the US, those being Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, all have a horse in the quantum race. They're all putting money behind it. They're all investing in quantum. So why would we just assume that the pursuit of quantum or quantum computing will bear no fruit? There's no way these companies could be successful according to who? We don't know that. There was a point in time where people were saying there's no way that a GPU will be useful. There's no way that Nvidia will be more than a graphics card company. There's always naysayers, but we even have Bill Gates who said that we could have useful commercial quantum computing in 3 to 5 years. So that is a recent headline that I'll put on the screen. He also says D-Wave is a fraud, and I attended the Qubits 2025 conference and I networked a lot. I talked to a lot of the companies that are working specifically with D-Wave. I talked to Japan Tobacco, and Dural was there looking at D-Wave computers. Boeing was on stage saying the ceiling for quantum annealing and quantum computing is much higher than we originally estimated. Davidson Technologies, the CEO, was practically yelling on stage, "This is useful. This is today. This is not the company. These are private companies that are there." And they are telling the investors, the other companies that are considering a business relationship with D-Wave, this is useful, this is practical on that. And we also know that Japan Tobacco has used it in pharmaceutical research. We know that Entity Docomo has used it for cell tower optimization.
It is really a great fit for the high dimensional problem sets that we work with and our customers care about. And so we're not out to in any way replace classical compute constructs and algorithms that are leveraging those types of capabilities. But we do believe that quantum has the potential to augment classical in a way that is unique and can actually provide better results than what we see generally in certain problem sets.
So to call an entire company that's been around for a quarter of a century a scam, that immediately is like, I don't think that argument has strong legs. Let's move to his next point here.
So D-Wave has been around 20 years. They made 6 generations of their computers. They've never worked. You can't find a customer who says they work. You can't find a customer who actually uses the machines in production. In software, we call production live setting, the real deal. Not just, trying it out, see if this thing could work someday, but actually like, no, this is a part of our business.
Right.
No one, not a single one that I'm aware of. And again, if the company could show one, I challenge them to do so. But, so I'm shorting these stocks. QCI was a beverage company. They're under investigation by the SEC. Not that I love the SEC, but, I think that, this is a company that basically didn't exist before. They had $30,000 of revenue last quarter, 30,000. Your stream and my stream do more than that. And I think that, for this to be a $2 billion.
One thing that is really nice about D-Wave is they post all this stuff on their website. So if you want to go and look at the case studies, they are available to look through, and they have case stories, and they provide all of this information. And these are real companies using the software today and paying money for it.
But the problem is, what are we going for? What is it that we're going to do when the magic machine shows up? And nobody can answer this question. And
I mean, a lot of things. I want to just answer the question. We're hopefully the extreme cost for GPUs and data centers, if we can take a GPU, a CPU, and a QPU and use them all in tandem, hopefully we can make that extreme energy cost right now that a GPU data center, that's one of the most obvious applications, is to reduce the amount of energy and the climate impact that these massive server and GPU data centers have. Secondly, with a sufficiently powerful quantum computer or quantum supercomputer, we could cure previously incurable diseases. We could model atoms on the atomic level. We could do things that no classical computer could ever do in 1 million or 100 million years. We can run computations that were previously thought impossible, and it opens up new branches in healthcare, in science, in technology, and so on and so forth. So that's why not only the US, but so many players in the United States, including the majority of the Mag 7 and all of these private companies, and China and Europe, and anyone that you can think of, is pursuing this technology.
Factoring numbers is fun. I like doing it. But the only thing it's good for is encryption. We've already had post-quantum encryption. In fact, the guy, his name is Chris Mon.
We don't have post-quantum encryption. In fact, most of our encryption right now is built on RSA, and a sufficiently powerful quantum computer could crack that pretty easily. In fact, Google and Google AI just released a study showing that with less than 1 million noisy qubits, they could crack RSA encryption. So even in the past week or so, the science and tech is changing. Let's go to his next point.
If you think about computing in general, Nvidia is the biggest computing company.
Right.
And XAI, OpenAI, these are the companies that buy these machines and they want to train models and run inference. These are hard to do computationally.
Right.
Quantum could never do those. It can't do those. Why? There's no memory. There's no RAM. There's no way to load the data into the machine. The machine has 100 qubits. You could how much can you can store your name in 100 qubits, maybe, but you can't store the corpus of the internet at 100 qubits. It doesn't do that. I think there's this confusion that.
So I'm going to be honest with you all. I am not a chip expert. I'm not a semiconductor expert. I'm not a quantum computer expert. I've said that a dozen times. I'm just very enthusiastic retail investor. I think the point is that a quantum computer will be able to process problems that are unattainable. For a GPU or a CPU. Our best CPU and GPU, our best supercomputing centers in the world. So in D-Wave's Beyond Classical, D-Wave first to demonstrate quantum supremacy on a useful real-world problem, they essentially released a peer-reviewed paper in the esteemed journal Science, and every scientist in the world has had a chance to look at this, pick it apart. And what we saw with Microsoft when they announced their Majorana 1 and released their paper is there was a ton of pushback from the scientific community. When this paper was released, not so much. So we are at this period where there's starting to become more and more, well, I can do this with a QPU better than you can do this with a GPU or CPU. And we have people saying, oh, no, you can't. But it's right here. It's in the esteemed journal Science. There's a landmark peer-reviewed paper that would say differently.
So it's interesting, this is really fascinating. My girlfriend's dad was a senior guy at Nvidia. And one of the funny things here, not that it gives me any insight, but I've been following Nvidia my whole life, and it's the greatest company in the world. The question is,
I agree. Martin's super bullish on Nvidia and thinks that Nvidia will be a $10 trillion company one day, and I think it's totally possible. So I don't disagree with everything that he says. And again, I'm not trying to be mean. I just want to take each point he said and provide a counterpoint so the conversation is a little bit more balanced.
So he goes on stage before that and he says, quantum's 30 years away. It doesn't work. It's not interesting.
Right.
And the quantum stocks, fall. I made like $2 million that day. And I am sitting there watching this like, oh, this is great, and he shits on them over and over again. And the problem becomes these quantum companies call him and say, hey, man, you really did a number on us. And, this is, what the hell, and I think Jensen just in that moment had this flashback to like when he was, making GPUs and everyone was laughing at him saying, GPUs don't matter. GPUs will never make a difference. And he was obviously right in the long run. And he basically said, I can't be that guy. I can't be the guy shitting on entrepreneurs, crapping on their dreams, telling them they're never going to work. I have to at least hear these guys out.
So that wasn't quite what happened. And I've documented this. I've essentially been a volunteer journalist for this industry for now the better half of 2025. And there was a long period of time where Jensen was, even when he invited these quantum computer representatives on stage, he said that a quantum computer is an instrument, it's not an actual computer, and was pretty dismissive, and it wasn't a friendly conversation. And it wasn't until these past 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, we've seen Nvidia shift their tone and their pocketbook towards direct investment in quantum. And it wasn't until last week that we saw Jensen at Computex say the future of computing is the CPU plus the GPU plus the QPU.
Which stack the world runs on. As that stack grows to include 6G and quantum, U.S. global infrastructure leadership is at stake. The U.S. join us at GTC Paris. I'll keynote at VivaTech on June 11, talking about quantum GPU computing, robotic factories and robots.
So he's in one breath, Martin is saying, Jensen is saying they're 30 years away, and he's taking that at face value. But the man himself, Jensen, is saying on the earnings call twice last night, he brought up quantum. And at Computex in his keynote, he brought up quantum as part of the suite of NVIDIA offerings.
Sun Kyocera are working with us on the full stack. Fujitsu and Cisco are working on the systems. And so now we have the ability to introduce the idea of AI on 5G or AI on 6G along with AI on computing. We're doing that with quantum computing. Quantum computing is still at the noisy intermediate state. intermediate scale quantum, called NISQ. However, there are many, many good applications we could already start to do. And so we're excited about that. We're working on a quantum classical or quantum GPU computing platform. We call it Q2Q, working with amazing companies around the world.
Not only that, in the earnings call, he previewed the keynote he's giving at GTC Paris, and Jensen said, we're going to talk about quantum. So Martin here is operating on outdated information and sort of an outdated narrative.
You know, it's okay to have a great imagination. Like, I have to do that as a business person. I dream one day that I can bring quantitative investing to the masses and you can trade like Jane Street and Citadel. That's my dream.
And that is so cool. I respect Martin for doing that, and I wish him the best in his business pursuit for his company. I think that is so awesome that he's trying to bring that to the masses. Very, very cool.
Is it realistic? Maybe, maybe not, but it's possible. The quantum stuff is just not possible. You know, the laws of physics and computing prohibit what they're talking about.
The problem is, and this is a nuance that's often overlooked with quantum, is the things around me in this room right now. We understand our physical world. We understand this physical realm, but the subatomic realm, the atomic realm, and the properties of qubits and quantum computing, we're still learning. This is a frontier of science. This is a frontier of technology. So to say it's not possible in the physical world, Martin is actually correct to say that. But the atomic world has a different set of rules, and there's different things that happen that we are learning in real time. So instead of discarding what we're learning in real time and saying that this isn't possible, that none of this could ever come to any fruition, perhaps it would be wise to look at it like with a little bit of a more of a humble lens, like we are in the process of learning what is possible and what's not possible.
So as an entrepreneur, I kind of understand it's great when people are excited, but I do think some of these have been really irresponsible. I'll give credit real quick to answer your question definitively. The Rigetti CEO has been superb at saying, don't expect revenue.
Right.
Don't expect us to make a machine anytime soon. We are a research company. Stop thinking this is a near-term thing. And he's done that, and I have to applaud him for doing that because the other guys are trying to tell you.
I agree with Martin here. And I covered his whole Needham interview, and Dr. Kulkarni is very, very clear that Rigetti is in R&D phase, and he estimates they're 2 to 3 years away from providing commercial value. Martin's still saying and carrying this 30-year line, which is outdated by literally almost every tech person. I don't know, like the short seller firms and the places that he's getting his information are thinking otherwise, but the tech world has to move fast and change fast and pivot fast. And that's not what we're hearing from the tech world.
Quantum is now, be excited today. And look, 5 years a lot can happen in 5 years, but as of right now, these machines are completely useless.
The D-Wave came out with some advanced hardware a week ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so they won't let anybody try it, and I think that's very telling because IONQ lets me use their machine. Despite I'm the biggest skeptic, IBM lets me use their machine. Rigetti lets me use their machine. New Era lets me use their machine. All of these other companies that
have you reached out to D-Wave?
I have, yeah.
And they said no.
You cannot get this machine without them banging you over the head trying to upsell you consulting services. So
I haven't gone down that realm, and I'll believe what Martin is saying, although I'm a bit skeptical. But to say that no one is using the machines, we have seen in just the calendar year 2025 that Jülich Supercomputer Center has literally purchased and installed the machine. And we also know that there is another machine that has been installed in Davidson. So D-Wave to deploy second US-based advantage quantum computer at new Davidson Technologies global headquarters. So that machine is installed and they're testing it right now currently.
They have any of, I think, Toyota, MasterCard, stuff like that?
Yeah, we have. So all the people we've talked to have said, Kerrisdale and we have talked to almost everybody they've pointed out, Everybody says quietly behind closed doors, it was a research agreement. It was an attempt. It was an attempt. Look, MasterCard's a $500 billion company. It was an attempt to think about possibly maybe improving one process at MasterCard, and it failed. And there's a reason. If any of these companies like the D-Wave machine, they would have 100 million in revenue. They would have $1 billion in revenue if these machines were useful.
So not necessarily. I think that revenue is not going to happen overnight, and there's a lot of education and understanding. And we also, I think that's the job of D-Wave and these other companies that are trying to go commercial, is essentially understanding what is the business purpose and application. Why couldn't I do this on a CPU or GPU? And how is this going to help my business be better and operate more efficiently? And Martin says you can't access a D-Wave computer, but D-Wave has 99% uptime and many, many clients commercial today.
Last question on quantum, then I want to move on. How leveraged are you into these shorts, and could you blow up your entire net worth if this goes against you?
Yeah, so I've been in this situation a million times. I'm not worried about that. Unlike other people, I do have access to capital outside of just my own. Yeah. So I've been making the rounds to various billionaires. As this trade goes up, I have more confidence to go to the people I used to work with, to go to the people I met in my travels over the years, and say, listen, I got a deal for you. This is the greatest trade I've ever seen. Do you want to short these stocks? It's an unbelievable opportunity. And if they go up higher, I just raise more capital and find more capital and short more of it. Because
what are these conversations with the billionaires like? Are they like, holy crap, this is a bubble, take as much money as you want? Like, how are you?
It's pretty exciting. They a lot of these guys are long stuff, so finding shorts is something they're interested in. They don't have mark to market. The hedge funds can't short right now.
Right.
That's why these stocks are popping as well. GameStop just put a kibosh on shorting. And the hedge funds, if a short goes against them even 10%, they're out. They're chicken.
So it's I think we'll probably stop it there, but it's interesting. If I heard somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, and I'm not Martin, and I'm not in his personal finances. Somebody told me he's lost $8 million shorting quantum stocks, and that must suck. And I think that it's you can clearly see that just as strong of a conviction as he has that none of these companies will do anything or worth anything. I have the same conviction that it's very possible that a lot of these companies will make a difference in the future and disrupt tech and the tech landscape. So opposite ends of the spectrum here, me and Martin, I just wanted to approach this React in the most respectful way possible. I'm not trying to be rude or anything to anyone. And I don't think Martin is either. I think he truly believes that the technology is not possible and that the companies have no value. And that's why he's so confident in the short. The dangerous thing about this is a technology that is very nuanced and difficult to understand. This is a new frontier of science, and a lot of eyes and attention and money is going into this. And the crazy thing about this, and what I would implore people to think about, is it's not just the US and US companies. It's not just Rigetti and IONQ and D-Wave. It's also Chinese companies. It's also European companies. It's Indian companies. You see these quantum computing centers opening, and then you have, I think, the most poignant counter argument to all of this is that our Magnificent Seven, 4 of 7 of them, are pouring money into research and building quantum computers. So if you're short quantum, then the headwinds for you are, do any of these dozens of quantum computer companies have a breakthrough in the next year, 2 years, 4 years, whatever it may be? Do any of these become commercially viable? And one success will beget the success of others, especially as information sharing and knowledge sharing happens. And 2025 is the International Year of Quantum. So he makes a comment, I think, here also that this reminds him of the internet bubble and different bubbles in his lifetime. And it's possible that maybe one or two of these companies won't be successful. Let's give Martin the credit that it is possible that maybe he's right, at least to some extent. I don't want to completely discredit the arguments that he's making, but at this point in time, it is unclear exactly which of these companies are going to be very successful commercially, even in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years and beyond. And that's why the valuations, which I also agree with Martin, have gotten a little out of hand, which makes the short thesis stronger. But at the same time, it's hard to price a disruptor. Maybe this technology really will take off. And that's kind of the camp that I find myself in, is that this technology has the opportunity to make the world a better place. And I think there's a place for gate-based quantum computing. I think there's a place for annealing quantum computing. I think there's a place for the GPU and the CPU.
So there are two main architectural approaches to quantum computing. One is called quantum annealing, as you just mentioned, and D-Wave is actually the only company in the world that provides annealing quantum computers. Everybody else is focused on gate model quantum computing. Now, there are some important differences between the two. Perhaps one of the most important differences is that annealing is a much easier technology to work with. It's easier to scale, and it's much less sensitive to errors. And as a result, our quantum computers are an order of magnitude larger than any other quantum computer, and they are able to deliver good, if not optimal, solutions to hard computational problems today without the need for error correction. On the gate model side, the technology is much more challenging, and it's very, very sensitive to errors. In fact, there's no evidence at all that a gate model quantum computer will be able to solve a useful commercial problem without error correction. And we're still many years away from error correction on gate model systems. And that's why D-Wave is commercial today. That's why we have customers that are using our systems as a part of their business operations today. And that's just simply not possible with gate model systems because they're still at very immature R&D stage where really all that's going on is research experimentation.
Interesting. So why haven't those companies chosen quantum annealing then?
So there's a really interesting historical answer to that question. They began building a quantum computer over 15 years ago. We're the first company in the world to start building a quantum computer. At that point in time, the science, the engineering had not yet progressed to the point where there was line of sight to how you could build a gate model system. But there was line of sight to how you could build an annealing quantum computer. And so we decided to start with annealing quantum computing. In some sense, it's the only thing we could do at that point in time. Now, we knew that annealing would be very good at solving business optimization problems. Frankly, most of the important hard problems that businesses need to solve are business optimization problems. And we knew that annealing would be good at that. But we also knew that there were things it could not solve. For example, you can't use an annealing quantum computer for molecular discovery for quantum chemistry, for example. Okay, so we decided to start with annealing. 8 or 9 years ago, when everybody else decided to seriously pursue developing a quantum computer, the science and the engineering had progressed to the point where it was believed you probably could build a gate model system. And at that time, and this is a really important point, at that time, it was believed that a gate model quantum computer could perform all computations, could basically solve all types of problems better than classical. And so everybody else sort of adopted the point of view, well, we know that annealing is good at some things, but not all things. We believe gate model is good at all things. We now think we know how to build a gate model system, so let's go there. Now, fast forward to a couple of years ago, and this is a really kind of interesting twist of fate, at least for D-Wave. A couple of years ago, it was proven by researchers in both the US and Europe that gate model quantum computers will likely never deliver a speed up on optimization problems. That you basically need an annealing system in order to address optimization problems.
And perhaps the future supercomputer center will be a combination of CPU plus GPU plus AQPU plus GQPU. Okay. We saw Dr. Baratz on a recent Fox interview that I covered saying that even the scientific understanding of annealing versus gate-based has changed. Everyone assumed that only gate-based would have value, but now we're realizing that annealing and gate-based have different things and strengths that they're good at. There's things that you would never do on a gate-based computer that you would do on annealing, and vice versa. So perhaps the stack of the future is a combination of all of these different types of compute. So betting against the future of computing, it's a risky trade. And Martin knows it's risky, and that's why he's going to Billionaire Friends to get more money to cover losses. And I personally wouldn't be shorting the stock, but I appreciate his willingness to go in front of 7,000 people and share his views. So anyway, that's all I got, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
GPUs could be used for pre-processing and post-processing, for error correction, for control. And so in the future, I predict that all supercomputers will have quantum accelerators, all have quantum QPUs connected to it. And so a supercomputer would be a QPU with QPUs and GPUs and some CPUs. And that would be the representation of a modern computer.